Sorry to do this to you and take away from the episode, but let's just take a quick pause so that I can ask you one question. Where do you need help improving your photography practice? Do you need help crafting better emails? Do you need help telling a better story with your images? I don't know, maybe it's something entirely different. Aaron and I are offering free, one-time only 30-minute one-on-one video sessions to help you with your specific photography and creative goals. We say this all the time on the show. We're not gurus and we're constantly learning ourselves. However, we do have experience and a track record of figuring things out in this industry, and we're confident that we can help you fast track your learning. So if you're benefiting from the general concepts of these episodes, but you want advice and guidance specifically tailored to your unique needs, you can click the link in the episode description to book a one-on-one, one-time 30-minute virtual session entirely for free. Zero cost, you book it at your convenience, and you get 30 minutes of either mine or Aaron's uninterrupted time. You can use the code FREETRIAL, that's free trial spelled FREETRIAL, at checkout. And now we can get back to today's episode.
Oh, motherfucker, this fucking guy already, every single time.
In pajamas?
The fucking dog.
I am in my pajamas.
He's dressed for a Zoom.
Dude, cozy on the bottom.
Business on the top.
Casual.
You know you've been on the show before when you show up in pajama bottoms.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't think this was a waist down segment. So
Well, at least you take the show seriously from the waist up.
yeah, you got the top half.
That's so funny. Bret Blakely, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing good, man. It's been a long time.
Many people don't know, but Bret was the very first guest on this podcast.
No way.
In its infancy, in its birth, 4 years ago, Mr. Bret was kind enough to trust me to interview him. And that's why Bret will always have a place in my heart.
And you killed it. I mean, both of you were born to do this, but I mean, you kicked it off. You were, I was like, man, what insightful questions.
Aww.
Just really raised the intellectual game for myself personally. And it was a great experience. So it's pretty fun to be back on.
Go subscribe on YouTube so you can see me blushing, everyone.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's shine a light on that face.
So, Bret, you've taken a hiatus for a little while, and I must say you've come back. I don't know how long your hiatus was, but it seems like you've never left. You've come back with some really, really good stuff. And don't take this the wrong way, but way better than what you used to post. You've always been really skilled, but like your stuff recently is incredible. Do you think that your break kind of from, you're focusing on Oncore Golf, the business you run, you had a lot of other, just you're living life. Do you think that's helped kind of helped you come back to this space with a fresh mind, inspired? Like, what's going on with you? I'm here to catch up with you, and I know this conversation is gonna be full of gems for people.
Yeah, no, I definitely think it helped. When we were kind of all talking a lot and doing our weekly calls and planning epic adventures and all that, I don't think I was so into it, so bitten and kind of obsessive about it, which was great. It was a great place to be. And then a lot of things just did happen. Life, stress and time constraints from the business, things in the personal life where just didn't have the same kind of flexibility to be able to kind of travel the way I felt like I wanted to. And I think just, there was probably a small point where I wasn't as eager to learn. And I think that's when things get really boring, when you don't want to learn anymore. And, there's so many ways to grow when you're creating, and whether it's photography or videography or anything. But I just kind of had needed a break, I think, from it. We all know Instagram can be a game, and I let it become too much of that, I think. And so taking that space and just kind of focusing elsewhere, I didn't really expect. I just didn't have I guess I wasn't as aggressive about making a plan and putting into action to get out and shoot or what have you. And I do think it helped a ton. I also, it's kind of funny because I look at a lot of my photos in, we'll call it the first half of the last, 6 years were definitely of a really moody nature and, very similar color tone, and I still love moody shots. But I got married, and obviously, well, we got engaged in February 2020, got married, a couple years later. And I don't know if that's part of it or what, but I have definitely noticed, I really enjoy kind of taking on the color of every scene and picture, and make them so they don't really look like each other on a grid necessarily, but I do think they're cohesive in the sense of they're all like kind of paying tribute to the various colors that we're in a scene. I have a more colorful style, I would say, than I used to. So I think it was great for me, for sure. I think everybody can use a break every once in a while. And I'm just glad that I found my way back to it because I really am. I'm in love with it, and for all the right reasons, and get really excited about creating, and more importantly, really excited about learning new stuff and learning new skills in the field.
Can you think? Oops, sorry. Oh, this is what we do. We're so excited. We just go at the same time.
Today.
You're a couple.
We need like a wink or like a.
We need the Family Feud buzzer.
Yeah. Or if I'm doing this, I'm coming in. I'm coming in hot. If I'm stroking the beard,
shot collar,
that's
maybe.
I want to talk.
Fine.
Yeah, shot collar for Seth that I can just press space bar and he gets zapped.
Just have like an Amazon wish list.
Things like that.
Yeah. My question along with Seth, I'm going to piggyback on it, is can you define is there a defining moment when you both knew that you needed to step away? Was there a moment where you said like, I'm going to step away, or was it a gradual sort of, I'm going to step away? And then on the flip side, is there a moment when you're like, I'm going to get back into this. I'm going to put some effort into this and showing my work, or getting back into photography? Are there moments that you can define or think of that were both of those scenarios?
Correct. Yeah. So for the stepping away, when I think about it, I really don't think it was intentional. It wasn't like a conscious break. It was more of just life happening, and whatever was internally driving, the interests and excitement before, unbeknownst to me, had kind of dwindled a little bit. And maybe that was because I was just like stagnant with, at least I felt I was stagnant with my skill set at that time. I do remember like when I did slow down it was probably like 9 months, 6 months. I had a ton of travel going on for Oncore. It was constant. It was, 1-2 times a month. And it was just really hard for me to not only, make time while I'm at home and not traveling, to not be like spending an hour or two on YouTube and learning new stuff or putting, new skills in action. But it was also, I think, really tough to feasibly have time to take trips. Now, there's no excuse for anything. I could just go out to, somewhere in Buffalo and things like that. But, my personality's big. I like the epic stuff, and it just wasn't exciting me enough just to like go down the streets to Tiff Farm or whatever. It's beautiful there. It's great. But I wanted, kind of some big scenes. And I feel like I was waiting for something that was really new to me, to pull me out of that. And I'm trying to think from a timing standpoint when it was, but I feel like Greece may have been the trip, because I believe I had already been engaged when I went on my break, and Greece I think was like the first big international trip that I had done in quite a while. And although of course it's it wasn't a trip for photography, but there were moments in there again where like I really enjoyed a lot of the stuff that I enjoy about photography. One of the things I always get excited about is, even the places that might be some of the biggest tourist attractions on the planet. I always say how cool it is that it's still probably less than 1% of people that will ever see the vast majority of these in existence. And it is a, 0.0000001% of people, if really nobody, that's going to watch that sunrise from that spot on that day at that moment with the same lens, with everything. Like everything you experience is so singular, even if you're in a place that's really populated. And I remember, Santorini was cool because it was our last night, and we did a whole boat thing that day, and then went to dinner that night. And I think it's called Ia is like the famous part where, the postcard Santorini. Of course, I wanted my sunset or a sunrise shot from there. And I mean, there had to have been over 500 people at the best vantage point. And it was the whole night walking, even though it was an incredible experience. We're in high season, and walking down the streets, you are literally squeezing through people no matter where you go. Next morning, our hotel was at the way other diagonal southeast end of the island, and I booked like a 4 a.m. Uber or car to drive me up the next day. And I got there while it was dark, and for about 2 hours, I had all of Santorini in high season completely to myself. I mean, there was nobody on the streets. I didn't see. I got to go to the same spot for sunrise. Got all my shots that I was really excited about. Was able to just enjoy it like slowly. People waking up, and then I just walked around for an hour, and it's locals coming out and sweeping off the front porches, and one by one individuals waking up. And I just remember how excited I was for getting up, being up early, and just taking the extra effort. Those were probably two moments on the polar opposite of ends.
And that's why sunrises always win for photographers, because the rest of the tourists are sleeping in.
Yeah,
waiting for breakfast.
Sure. I just take sunset pics, and then when I caption, I say, "Check out this sunrise."
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell AI to make it look more like a sunrise.
I don't do that. I'm kidding. God.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Anyone who's seen your work recently, and if you haven't seen Bret's work, go follow his page. This is a refreshing story of how you can leave something you are passionate about and love so much, and it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
It's really easy to pick things back up that you have built the skill set for. Maybe not at first. I'm sure you were a little rusty when you came back. Things felt clunky, awkward, maybe. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well,
at least that's how it works for me. But you can leave things that you are passionate about and have loved, and you can come back and do really well, even better than when maybe that passion was fading. And your story is very telltale of that. I think I knew you were back. He's back. When I saw your Quebec Northern Light shots.
Yeah.
And take this as a compliment, because it is so hard to stand out with memorable content on this platform these days. We all know that. And I know the exact shots in my mind that I just referred to. Like, I can see them.
That's cool.
And I thought to myself, damn, Bret's back. Bret's back having fun. Bret's back going to be doing some stuff. So let this be permission for anyone listening who's like, man, my heart's just not in it. I got to deal with some other life things. You can come back at any time. Stuff's waiting for you always.
Yeah.
Right? And what a gift for, in a way, it's kind of, you could relate to like the golf gods giving you a gift, Bret. But, you took a break, you listened to your heart, you kind of faded out for a minute. You had other things to do, and you come back, and the photography gods, if you will, gives you that Northern Lights when you're doing a cabin gig. And for the hosts of that cabin, they must be like, are you kidding me with these photos? Like, gee, we picked the right weekend, and like, you guys crushed it. And it was just like, I don't know, very, very meant to be in that moment. It was kind of cool. You call it luck, call it whatever, but you were ready, and you captured it. And it's like, I've always thought of you as kind of like a blessed photographer. Like, you get these really cool moments. That deer
You're just saying he's lucky?
No, but beyond lucky.
It's part of it, for sure.
But some of it. But
you know what? I've heard a great saying that stuck with me. I think it'll stick with me forever. It's, you have to be good to be lucky, and sometimes you got to be lucky to be good.
Yeah.
I love that saying.
And the more you practice, the more you're out there, the luckier you get, right? Like, that's what ends up happening. But
well, I mean, we were definitely lucky in that case. It was raining and overcast after our sunset hike, where we didn't really get a sunset. It was like kind of a moody, big miss kind of sunset, and we go to dinner, and one of the guys from Buffalo is texting Adam, Danny, and he's just like, man, it's like a 10 out of 10 tonight where you guys are, how is it? And we're like, bro, it's literally overcast, raining. You can't see anything. So we thought we were going to have this beautiful light show going on over us and not even be able to witness it. And that's a lot. We get back to the cabin, shut off all the lights, threw the fireplace on, decide to just edit. And sure enough, like 15 minutes later, Adam just kind of sticks his iPhone toward the glass, and he's like, I can see the lights are out. It must have, started to clear, and it was super windy. And so of course we hopped in our gear and went outside, and it was 3.5 hours straight that we spent out there because it was just going nuts. All the colors were constantly changing. You could literally see them pulsing, with your naked eye. We're like yelling to each other from different vantage points. Can you effing believe it? What's going on? This is crazy. So
3 hours straight.
Those are those moments where you're just like,
the neighbors are like, shut the fuck up.
No, luckily, it was pretty. There was nobody around.
No one around you.
We did luck.
In French.
Yeah.
La bouche.
Something. Yeah, I wish I could speak French. I can't.
That's it.
Not all Canadians can speak French. For the majority of our American listeners, that's our audience. Stereotype us.
Yeah, all the Airbnbs that we were working with were definitely, some thick French accents, and I'm like, man, I gotta learn this. Gotta learn some French. Gotta learn some other languages. Now I'm seeing on the TikTok shop those headphones or the earbuds that translate instantly, and so now, so now when I just filled out a form for Trova Trip to be a host. They wanted me to be a host for one of their workshops or whatever. And it says, how many languages do you speak? And now I want to say all, because I'm just going to get these. I speak every language on earth.
I understand every
I
language.
actually have Neuralink in my
brain. Yeah. I think that's really going to up, my valuable, one of my valuable assets. So
Bret Blakely, brain interface photographer, trip host. Let's rewind. So when you were kind of losing the fire, the spark to get out and shoot in that phase, was there guilt?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. It's a good call.
Can you describe that?
Laying down for this, because now this is getting deeper.
Well, I asked this because I was betting you would say yes, because we've all felt that when there's something we feel like we should be doing, or we've sunk so much time or money into something, I think we feel like we're abandoning the thing, or we're giving up on ourselves in a way, and we don't give ourselves permission to step away.
Mm-hmm.
And then we end up feeling bad about how we're feeling, and it can spiral.
100%.
And I'm curious if this is accurate, or if you can maybe describe the nuances of that experience for you.
I definitely was. Well, I was feeling bad about it. I was feeling sad about it, that I had lost something that I was just like, could not wait to do more than anything. Confused as to like why that passion had dipped down. Like looking back on it, I think, Oncore which is a golf ball company, we're 13 years into it. And there are so many ebbs and flows of it. There have been a handful of times we've figured we were writing our last paychecks, and then times where we are jumping for joy and feel like we're going to be, multimillionaires tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And so that definitely takes a lot of toll on you. And that time frame was definitely a point where we had been growing really quick, and it was also making it really hard to stay alive and thrive. And so I think there was a lot of stuff going on. For one, felt like that was taking a lot of my emotional energy. And for me, you guys know I'm a super emotional guy, sometimes at fault, and sometimes it's good. But photography for me is super emotional. Like anything that has to do with like something I feel like I'm creating or getting to capture as it's being, as it's happening and everything is more of an emotional experience for me. Because it ties in so many senses. When I'm editing, I'm listening to music that makes me emotional in whatever capacity. It doesn't mean I'm crying. It just means feeling something. And so like to be able to put that much emotion and time into the art form and still give the time and effort as I felt I needed to with Oncore, I was finding really difficult. But then that whole thing, I think, is also what kind of fueled my comeback, if you will. Like it fueled the passion being reignited because there was so much stress around Oncore and is on good days and bad days. Sometimes the good days are even more stressful because they're like, well, how do we top that? How do we take the next step? And it really made me evaluate like, all right, so I never felt stress or very rarely other than like, man, I'm really bummed I missed a shot or the weather stinks or, that was about it. Other than that, it was just like, it gave me weeks or months of excitement looking forward to the next big adventure or trip. I couldn't wait to get out with whoever I was going with, on these adventures and just knowing there was going to be boatloads of laughs and memories all the time. So it made me kind of put into perspective, like, all right, obviously I want Oncore to succeed and I hope I can take it to the limit. And I hope it gets to a point where I'm more, can just kind of let it run on its own and I can spend more time doing this. But if you were to put a gun to my head, what do I want to do for the rest of my life? If I was able to make a living off of it, I wouldn't care if I made half of what I make running Oncore. If I could do photography tomorrow and it could pay the bills and support a family and everything like that, I would do it. Just because it does bring that much joy. And it's also made me like really wary of, as I'm starting to learn how to potentially monetize, I'm trying to put like fail safes in place where like agreements with myself to not take on jobs that are going to put me down a path of losing passion. If it's like Airbnbs, Aaron, you and I were talking about are so fun because if they're the right Airbnbs, these are in places and they're the kind of shots that people who like the outdoors and do landscape and wildlife would want anyway. So this is no sweat off my back. In fact, the product's going to be a lot better for, the client because I'm going to be super stoked to be there and excited. And, it's going to be part of a great experience. I'm hoping I can avoid feeling the need or having to take on a brand or a partnership of something that I just didn't get excited about. Because I think that, that's when it doesn't become fun, which is where I kind of go back to like, I don't care if I don't make a boatload of money, but if it allows me to continue to do it and I can at least contribute as a functioning member of my family and a partner to Susie, then I'd love to do that. I think that's kind of where like fueling the passion is. And it's also giving me so much to learn because now there's a business side that I really got to figure out, building a media kit, all sorts of stuff to go along with that.
Yeah, well, that's a lot of stuff Seth and I could help you and would love to help you with.
I would love to.
Just in terms of some of the things that we've worked through. And we just had a call right before this recording about that exact same stuff, pricing a job. And
I was trying to price something out and Aaron says, you want to hop on 30 minutes early? And we like to do that because then I think Aaron and I play this game and I suggest other people maybe play this game with us or somebody they trust. I have a number in my head, usually of what I'm offering, and then I explain it to Aaron the best of my ability. And then I say, hey, what would you charge for this? And if he's within the range, I'm like, okay, I'm pretty confident with this.
Yeah.
And sometimes we're way off. And then it's a chance for one of us to explain why and then agree or disagree. Usually I agree with Aaron. He's pretty smart. Pretty smart guy.
Thanks, Seth. Yeah, it's a fun it's a fun practice, and we typically go back and forth with little things like that. How to pitch, how to email, how to price. What do
Yeah.
you think about this? You think this is fair? Is this too much? I don't feel good pressing the send. And I'm like, press the send. You know,
It's nice because
just
you're
a
not
little
emotionally
encouragement.
invested, right? Like maybe I have a
Right.
relationship with this person, or
hmm
I want to make sure I get more of the work.
Yeah, I don't want
And
to
you're like,
lose
I don't know these people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is objectively what you should charge, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I go, God damn it, you're right.
Brett, you
Do
said
guys
something
find it hard?
interesting.
Sorry,
What's-
just a question. I just wonder if you guys, like, in the beginning or still, do you find it hard to do you find that you're constantly undervaluing yourself? Because I feel like I am in that phase right now where I just almost want to do everything for free just to build a portfolio. Like, I
Mhm.
feel I would be so happy to have somebody have, you know, a photo of mine in their house that I would almost rather give it away. Like, it's really tough. And Susie's always like, babe, you gotta, like, people are gonna walk all over this. They're just gonna take
Yeah.
advantage. Like, you're worth more than that. Think how much money it costs you to do that. That's one thing I
Mhm.
struggle with big time.
I always
Yeah,
say you can build a
Mhm.
portfolio in a day in your house without actually being on assignment for anyone.
Right.
Like you can showcase your skill set just going out to the golf course with a buddy,
Yep.
taking some awesome shots, some bunker shots.
Yep.
Now you're pitching Oncore Golf.
Yeah.
There we go.
Right?
Yeah, and you're new to it, so this is a very normal new business feeling where you're like, I want to get in. I don't want to offend anyone. I don't want to rip anyone off. I gotta like, I'm dipping my toes in, you know. Which brings me to a point of something you said. Like, I think right now you work hard with the company. It's emotional and stressful. The Oncore Golf, that's how you're describing it. Like that's a lot. And if you could do photography and love it every single day and pay the bills, you would. I think there's a trade-off. I think there's very few people in the world that wake up every single morning and get to go to work and absolutely love every aspect of it. There's a trade-off. So right now you work a day job, which allows you to be picky with, I'm only going to do the photography that's going to light my fire and make me love it. Maybe it's a gig once a month, but that's okay because I have my safety net. I think if you take the safety net away, there's still this aspect of life where it's like you got to do some things you don't necessarily want to do to make it all work.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of it. I think that's a nice place to be. Like I have my day job. I work in a school. It's very fulfilling in a very different way. And I can be very choosy with the photography I want to do. Right. But if I said I'm going to go all photography, you better believe I'm taking some gigs I don't want to do because I need to make that bottom line. And
then
it might
lose passion.
Right. And then it might not be as fun. I might have to balance the passion. I might have to put it down. Can you put it down? Can you actually put it down? And that's a very suffocating feeling that I fear, actually, is that feeling of like, you can't put it down. You can't take a break. You need to keep grinding and pushing because your livelihood depends on it. So either way, I feel like it's the rare person that's just like, hey, show up. And maybe that takes years and years of work where you can get there and you have a team behind you. You just met Chris Burkhardt. He's like doing projects he wants to do and he has a team behind him. But I guarantee the build up to that was a lot of stress and a lot of hard work and a lot of stuff he did not want to do. Right.
Yeah.
So I think either way, it's there.
No, it's a great point. And, you know, it's not like I definitely want to see Oncore through. I mean, it's been one of the greatest experiences. Some of the people I've met and, you know, places I've gone and all that have been unbelievable. It's more so of, you know, almost, I guess what I was saying is more of like, if I had just a choice from scratch of what I would have been doing my whole life, you know, like I know we used to talk about this kind of, I wish we had found the passion earlier in life. Because these these younger bucks and young women, they have yeah, I know bucks is like totally showing my age. They just have a head start, and these people are like, some of the video work and things they're creating right out of the gate is just unbelievable. But at the same time, I guess your passion is a lot like your relationships, where sometimes if you had started it at a different time, it wouldn't have resulted in the same present state of whatever your passion for it is. I mean, I know my wife and I are the same way. We always talk about, God, we met each other so late in life, but we probably weren't gonna work if we had met each other 10 years earlier, because we just weren't there in our lives. So but yeah, it's a good point. I feel very grateful for Oncore and for the fact that it does allow me the flexibility, and it is super fun most of the time. But when it's not, is when you're really like, oh, I just want to be over the ups and downs, be over the stress of it all. And but that's with anything.
Yeah, that's business.
Yeah.
Producer's telling me we have a call on line 2. People are wondering why the share price of Oncore is dropping. One of their directors is saying he's quitting to do photography.
Yeah. Well, good thing we're not public. So
yeah. No, you're getting into kind of like this almost like predeterminism concept. When people say I wish that I had found this sooner, I always say, well, you found it now.
Yep.
What a tragedy to have never found it. I think it's just kind of a nice antidote for avoiding regret territory or shoulda, coulda. Just because it doesn't serve you, right?
Yeah. On top of that, you're literally thinking about something that did not happen or could not have happened, right? Like, I wish I met my partner 10 years earlier. Well, okay, you're in a fantasy land, because that's not neither possible, did not happen, and neither here nor there. Like, we're spending a lot of time wondering about a different realism.
And you're assuming that the current state of joyfulness would occur where it could have gone south.
Yeah.
100%. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I just don't think it serves us. It's an interesting experiment, but I feel like people can get lost in it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I only found it. Like, I wish I had started this sooner. It's like, well, you're doing it right now.
Yep.
Doing it right now. And I think it's really admirable when, you see the odd story of, like, let's say like an 80-year-old who takes up marathon running. And you're like, oh my God, that's sweet.
Yeah. That's awesome. When you look at like J.K. Rowling, and, there are people who just had tremendous success that didn't even find it until, well past the second half of their life. No, I mean, it is interesting. And the amount of growth that you do in your 20s and, 30s is pretty significant, and just a life experience that you have. So to your point, there's so many things that could have happened that would have either made it a passion that flamed out permanently, or a passion that never came to fruition, because it just wasn't, there was nothing that actually triggered it. I mean, the thing that got me into photography was my first trip with my now wife that, 6 months into our dating. Had that trip not happened, I don't know if there would have been anything that actually pushed me over the edge from always just liking to have a disposable camera on me, so I had like memories, to, no, I actually want to learn like the art of photography and get a real camera and stuff like that. So
yeah. And the fallacy with the what ifs is we keep everything good the same, right? So everything good in our life, we keep that the same, and we say like, this would be an add-on. So Bret, had you found photography 15 years ago and became someone, huge in the landscape of photography or Instagram or what have you, there's a good chance you'd never meet Susie and have your dog and be in that beautiful house.
Start your business,
and take Oncore to the place that it's at. So there's Seth and I say it, there's no, perfect solution sometimes, or most of the time it's just a trade-off. Like there's these trade-offs that you can have, but that's it. So you got to kind of take a look at the whole picture and be like, no, this is how I'm where I need to be. This is where I need to be. And what do I do going forward? Because thinking about how this used to be is not serving anyone. And since the beginning of Instagram, in terms of like when I've joined, it's always been the same song. 5 years ago, this was different. 5 years ago, this was better. 5 years ago, the algorithm was better. 5 years ago, I got to see the things I wanted to see. 5 years ago, there were no ads. 5 years ago, there weren't reels. It just keeps changing, but the time frame's the same. 5 years ago, it was this, and it's like, we can always complain about what things were. It's Monday morning quarterbacking. It's like,
yeah,
it's easy to see what was worse or better or whatever now, but just who are the people that are going forward and moving and are alive today?
Yep. No, I like that.
It's a good thing I didn't pick a different co-host.
That's right. I would have found you.
What a could have. Yeah.
Aaron's a keeper. I think your comment too about the young bucks, as you put it, with all this crazy video and stuff.
You can edit that out, right?
No, we're keeping it in.
Exactly.
I looked at the camera thinking I was a young buck, but I'm not anymore. I was just thinking, when you also mentioned, your 20s and 30s is such a developmental stage. It's that what goes on in that stage is obviously different though for each generation. I think we have lots of generations that are serious in this space, obviously. And I think each one, to stereotype and in a general sense, has its pros and cons. So, the younger generation, maybe whiz kids with videos and effects, but they've grown up with a tablet in the house from the time they were 10 years old.
Yeah.
Right. Do they have your people skills, Brett, to close business deals and get investors? Maybe some, but I think it's just, we can cherry pick the things we really admire about the other generations and forget all the things that we're awesome at. And it's just, it's important to keep in mind, I think. And you naturally practice gratitude that way.
Yeah.
And you look at those kids, as I'm sure you do, as, wow, that's amazing. I'm inspired. I want to learn that, as opposed to like, damn kids and their stupid iPads. Right? It's more of
Nintendo Switches.
Yeah, it's more of less resentment, more that's really cool. I may not naturally be inclined to this as naturally inclined to this as you are, but I want to learn because I'm interested in it and reach my potential in that area, which is all you can do and ask for.
Which is an amazing transition to one of my questions. Bret, we've described you on the show recently, even in bringing you up as one of the best networking people that we know, in terms of, when I tell my genesis story of photography, you are an integral part in that, sort of pumping up my tires, introducing me to people, creating groups, seeing what sticks, doing all these things, right? Like, that is you. And I felt like I was the only person that you were rooting for. Honestly, that's the feeling that I had. Despite, I'm sure, you son of a bee were doing that with many other guys and girls. And I don't want to know about it because I felt like I was the one.
Oh my God. Yep.
However, my question is this: how important, you have photography and you have people skills, how important for the whole picture, whether it's creating income in photography, creating business, where is the puzzle piece for people skills in photography, and what has it gotten you?
Might be premature to comment as far as like where that puzzle piece fits into the business part, because the business part, is pretty brand spanking new to me. So I don't know how much, monetary.
What about with Oncore?
What's that?
What about with Oncore in a case study that you've lived for a decade or more?
Yeah, that is, if there was a title relationship guy, I think that would be me for Oncore. And I love it. It's my favorite part of the business. I love the human connection. I have a ton of insecurities that I think have made me very empathetic growing up. So think that also makes me actually really get drawn more to the relationship with people, because I feel very appreciative of anyone in my life that, you know, sees past what I think are like huge insecurities or flaws. And they're like, what are you talking about? Nobody cares. You know, so there's just like I think that's why I like people. It's just, I'm appreciative of it. And that's where the emotional part of it comes from. And for Oncore, it's been paramount. I mean, most of the, 95% of the stuff that I think I've contributed would be in the relationship space. I remember one of the coolest moments was when we had our first celebrity tournament that we were hosting, that we put on. I mean, it was, 9 months of planning. It was getting sponsors. We had never done any of this. I mean, it was because we were having Anthony Anderson fly in, and Josh Allen was heading it, and Alonzo, all these big names from all over the country. And we had to book flights. We had to, pay for their flights. We had to do all this kind of stuff. And so, of course, we needed to get huge sponsors, because we were not going to be able to foot that bill ourselves. And went off without a hitch. But the night before the tournament, we had a big VIP, celebrity party. It was so much fun. And of course, we had a videographer, and I remember him the next day being like, "You're going to love this footage." He said, "I went up to every celebrity and asked them why they came to Buffalo for this event." And he said, every single one of them said, "Because Oncore makes me feel like family." And I thought that was, I have said those exact words so many times to people that I meet at tournaments, when somebody is asking about the golf balls, or, at the PGA show, or when I'm talking in front of high school kids, I say, we always want to make people feel like they're on the journey with us, and that they're not just like a customer, a dollar sign, like that they're really part of something, and that we care about them and everything. And so for that to be repeated back without being fed was definitely one of my favorite happenings. And I was just like, regardless of what happens with the business, it could go bankrupt tomorrow, but like that part of it was a huge success. So I think taking that into photography is going to be really fun on the business side. I mean, I just got back Friday from Sony's creator event, which I'd never been to, just saw it on their social, and talk about getting inspired and like just giving a little shot of photo adrenaline, if you will, being around so many like-minded people, because so many of my close friends could give two shits about photography. And I used to take it really personally. Like, how can you not care about something you can see that I am extremely passionate about, to like, this is in the early days, to even like throw a like on my photo, what I mean? Now it doesn't bother me at all. Totally get it. They're just not into photography. It doesn't matter. So it's really cool being around a lot of like-minded people. And I think even being then not necessarily in a room with 200 people or 300 people that are photographers, but being in the business, I'll be having discussions with more people that at least appreciate the art form, or appreciate, creators coming in. The talks I've had with the people running these Airbnbs that I did and that I'll be doing this winter and stuff has been so fun. It's they get it. They're outdoors people. It's nice to know that like they appreciate how you see the world, and so that's where I do think it the more relationships we have too, if I think are gonna keep that fire alive, because there's more people that you can kind of keep in your surroundings and in your atmosphere that are gonna be excited when you talk to them about it, rather than like, oh, I'm like the only person I know that does photography other than a couple people, and one lives in Canada, one lives in Connecticut, whatever. So I'm excited for that part of it too. And I do think that's where it'll become a benefit.
To Aaron's point about how when you two were talking or conversing, you made him feel like he was the only person at that moment who was important. In a more nuanced sense, and maybe you can describe this, maybe you can't. how are you able to give people that sense when you're talking with them, when you're communicating with them, whether it's a business deal or just a friendly interaction, that they have 100% of your attention
Uh,
beyond just like obviously not pulling out your phone? I'm not talking about that stuff, but just how are you, do you feel like able to give that sensation that they are the only person that matters and really tying a knot on that emotional connection, even if it's a simple conversation?
well, I mean, truly, when I was talking to Aaron, I mean, when I was talking to you, like, you were all that mattered, at that moment. I
It
don't think
sounds cheesy, but I was going to say the same thing. Like, I think in that moment, he's so genuine.
yeah, I
That's
get
why I said it might be hard for you to describe, because it seems it's so virtuous, but I think it is difficult, can be difficult for some people to give that impression. And I think to add to this, you are very much someone who goes into a conversation or an interaction without the urge to come out the other side with something. I
Yeah.
feel like you go into a conversation without expectations, just, hey, I'm here to give what I can, whether that's my attention, my empathy, a great deal. Is that fair to say that you go in interactions to give? And if so, how has that served you, that concept?
I mean, first off, truly, I like those are such kind words that you're making me sound probably way better than I am. I do think that it's probably partially from having just so many like personal insecurities and things from a very young age. Like I had a bunch of surgeries when I was a little kid, and that always kind of rang on or hit on me hard. And so I think like first grade, I had 6 surgeries on my ear because I had to basically have it formed on my one ear. And so from a very early age, I think, having this big personality and wanting to be liked so bad so that whenever what I felt was such a physical indeficiency or something to be, insecure about, it wouldn't matter. So I think that's kind of where it stemmed from. But when you do something or you act a certain way long enough, it becomes just part of who you are. So like, I do think that whether like the things that I'm not insecure about, things that I love about myself are all the things that you mentioned. So I do think, luckily for me, because I do like that, I think those are very genuine. I of course there's business meetings where you're going in with an intent and you hope to get something great out of it because there's never gonna be a person who's not selfish, at least some of the time. And I can be selfish a lot of the time. I'm also very I can be I'm a emotion, heart on my sleeve kind of guy. So that, like I said, it can be good when I'm feeling really good, and I can be, pretty moody if I'm, just really down. It's hard for me to hide. But I think like with, I don't think it's anything. I think if you're doing it just to like do it and make people feel like it's like that can be, people can be really convincing at it. We see it in politics. We see it in all sorts of stuff. We see it in daily life, but I think, it's not going to be like long lasting, and it's definitely eventually going to be figured out because they're not that guy or they're not that girl or they're not that person. But if you genuinely, do, if relationships with people of any kind are something that are really just important to you, that is automatically, in my opinion, going to come out. And I feel really lucky about that because I feel like right now everything is so uncertain. It's it can be a really scary world and time and everything. And I'm really glad that having people in my life and loving people and being loved by people is at the top of my priority list. Because I kind of feel like people are missing out if it's not, if that's not one of their main goals, and a lot of their dopamine rushes and stuff are going to be short lived and not from a place of purity, maybe.
And you see this a lot with, well, I guess there's 2 roads you can go down with insecurity. Like it becomes your superpower, like the polar other end of it, or something that keeps you down, right? Like you could have easily gone a different way of like, I'm going to retreat. I'm not going to put myself out there. I'm not going to interact. I'm not going to emotionally connect because of the fear of being rejected. But instead it became like this, I need to connect, and I better make sure I know how to connect in a certain way, which is, all in your own head and your own narrative. But it did create this thing where you are really good at and genuine at connecting.
No, I appreciate it. It's funny because it was such an impact that, I mean, even through college, in college, I took a public speaking course and I was still so shaken, even though I had, again, in high school, I played every sport. I was pretty popular. Like I never got bullied that I could remember ever. So again, this was all internal for sure. But when it came to being in a room with people that I didn't have an opportunity to hide my insecurities and get them to like me first, where it was just like full blown exposure, here you go, rip the Band-Aid off. I wasn't ready for that. And I took a public speaking course in private with a professor who had, interestingly enough, had a ton of insecurities growing up. And then he overcame it to a point that he was teaching public speaking. One of the best things, other than the little moments of, longer term relationships where, I actually had discussions about it. And of course, a whole lifetime of great groups of friends that never judged me. Like, of course, I was always kind of chipping away at it, but it was Oncore that threw me into the fire. The first time I had to go on CNBC was fairly early on. And I remember asking our PR people, hey, I don't know if this is even possible. I don't mean to be a diva, but is there any way they can shoot me from the other side? And they're like, yeah. I was like, I'll just be more comfortable. And they're like, there's nothing we can, really do about that. They have their whole set and stage CNBC is set up. And that was the first time that like the camera was going to be facing my insecurity dead on the whole time. I'd turn my head and look at the people. And that was like probably the best thing that could have happened ever. And pretty much since then, I would say I went from like a stress level of here down to here over it. And now I don't care. And now I actually bring it up when I talk to like students and do public speaking stuff because, I relate it to how the technology in our golf balls is different and how you can leverage, your uniqueness and being different. And to your point, it's a kryptonite versus superpower. For me, it was a kryptonite in a sense, but it was always kind of fueling this superpower that gave me, I think, the best parts of myself.
And surviving through those moments of, you call that the pinnacle of, not to bring up another golf ball company, Pinnacles suck, by the way.
Oh,
but
nice.
the pinnacle of the stress of, wow, the camera, the first time I'm on TV is going to be pointing at my insecurity at the,
right.
And again, you have a couple choices in those moments, fight or flight. Like I'm out of here. We're not switching. I can't do this. I can't do it. And that sends you down a road where that wall becomes stronger, right? That block becomes stronger versus facing it, getting into it and getting through it. And then coming out the other side and the relief that you felt like,
yeah,
not that it healed you, but it must have chunked away at that wall with a giant sledgehammer and let you feel like, I survived. And I'm looking back like at the video, that looks way better than I thought in my head it would look. And I spoke pretty well and I made a few jokes and I laughed and I represented the company. These are all wins. Like maybe this is bigger in my head than everyone else's. And I need to learn from this as a viewer that, I'm so glad this happened and I'm so glad I got through the other side, because next time I'm not going to ask about the chair. I'm going to do my thing.
Yep. No, it was.
And it's those moments where you have to face it. whether it's getting a cabin shoot for your first time or a new company or being asked to run a trip or go on a trip. And there's always that voice that's like, oh, don't do it. You might embarrass yourself. You know, like you have to tell that voice to shut up sometimes and give it a go.
Or you run forever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess you got blasted into exposure therapy.
Yeah.
For real. Yeah. You guys are going to laugh at this. I'll share this. So I don't have many fears, but one of them that I have been terrified of my whole life, you guys can laugh, it's okay. I cannot feel my own pulse. I hate the feeling of like feeling my heartbeat at the doctor's office, the blood pressure cuff.
Oh yeah.
9 to 10 out of 10 anxiety.
Really?
Does that make your blood pressure spike?
Yeah. So for the longest time, the doctors have been like, you have high blood pressure. And I'm like, no, I'm just 9 out of 10 fight or flight right now. Sympathetic nervous system activation.
Wow.
And I'm like, so for the longest time, I'm like, whatever. I'm in my 20s and my teens. Who cares? I don't have high blood pressure at 24, right?
Mm-hmm.
Unlikely. I turned 30 this past year, and I'm an active person. We talk about, I do running, hockey, all that good stuff. I'm like, I really don't have high blood pressure, but I need to know what this is at as I get older.
Yeah.
And it's a silent killer, and it's so avoidable. Check your blood pressure too, people. So I was like, this is ridiculous. So I went on Amazon and I bought an electronic blood pressure cuff. And I've been taking it twice a day for the last 3 weeks in the comfort of my home.
Nice.
And just like repeatedly exposing myself to it. And day one, attempt one, pressing the button just to get it to inflate. I'm talking sweating.
Wow.
Like palms sweaty, muscle flexed intense, just touching the thing. I started with just pressing the button and turning it off right away, or putting the cuff on and not inflating it. And so to Bret's point or story as well about exposure therapy, this is a little bit different. It's not as insecurity as much as it is just like a fear. I'm on week 3 now, and I can throw that thing on and have no issues whatsoever. And it's funny how rational thoughts form. While it's happening, you're like, you're not going to die. This is a sign that you are alive. The results are good. It's just interesting how you can have such an irrational chemical response, reptilian brain fear.
Yeah.
And then you get exposed to it, in Bret's case, one time very severely on CNBC, or gradually over time, introducing yourself slowly to things that are very, very stressful.
Yep.
And over time, it's like, it's not like yesterday. I felt my pulse on you can see it right here. I'm feeling it. I felt my pulse on my wrist. Yeah. Yay. Woohoo. Yeah, good for Seth. I felt my pulse on my wrist for the first time. I was like, holy, I've been avoiding doing that small thing for 20 years, maybe more.
Do you ever lay on your side?
Like what you're afraid of? Are you afraid what makes you afraid about it? I
think I know. So I've had this for as long as I can remember. And I think I understood from a very young age why. So I didn't grow up with grandparents because they all died of heart disease. Like very, very young. I'm talking 50s. And I grew up, I think, knowing that from a young age without a very good grasp on what that meant. And just the concept that an organ beats nonstop forever and can just go at any second terrified me. And I think feeling it is a reminder of like, oh my God, I think it's like a mortality thing for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Because it doesn't bother me when I look at my Garmin and I can see the heartbeat. It doesn't bother me on like a hard run. It's when I'm lying in bed and everything else is still, the room's quiet and just
yeah.
Or when the cuff is releasing and you can just feel it. I'm like, ooh. It's really like I would put the stress now at honestly a 2 or a 1. And 3 weeks ago it was a 9.5. Like looking for the door, wanting to run. So interesting story about me. I'm glad you guys hung in there. But it's interesting that if you expose yourself to stuff, slowly and in a reasonable way, it becomes not so bad and you can develop actual rational thoughts. And now the strength of this is I can actually monitor my health.
Mhm.
Bret can go on TV and not feel bad about how he looks.
Yeah.
And he can speak. And it's the same formula for all the things that are scaring you in life, as silly as mine may be.
Yeah. And for Bret, I'm sure you can relate to this. We're old. Bret and I are older.
You guys look great. What do you mean?
Of course, because we take care of ourselves. Golfers live longer, 4 years on
200,
average.
I think. Yeah.
I just read that study. Anyways, when there's a nice thing about age is you get to a point where you're like, if someone doesn't like me because of a physical attribute, I don't fucking care.
Really.
Right? But that's not with you when you're a kid. That's not with you in your teens. That's not even with you in your early 20s when maybe you're like, looking for a partner, like whatever it is. But there comes a point where enough people like you for your heart and like who you are, to bring it back to Seth's point. Like he freaked out. He had to mute me when I said heart. I have to warn him. I give him a sign.
Funny
It's
thing
like a
is
safe word.
I've done shoots at a children's hospital, sick kids, where there's literally cadaver hearts, and I'm
Oh
fine.
my God. Yeah,
But it's because I'm so focused on what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I think the next step for my exposure therapy is like in an OR with a perfusionist, like redirecting blood flow.
Yeah.
I like
Pulling
that.
the heart out.
I just pass out.
Jeez. Yeah, you get old enough and you get enough reassurance where that's a nice part about age. It's kind of like the grandpas or the grandmas that are going to speak whatever they want, right? They say whatever they're thinking. They're like, I don't give a crap anymore.
Yeah.
And you care about what you care about. And there's a nice part to aging and sort of just accepting who we are.
So on this question, I was going to ask Bret this. Are there people who don't like you?
Sure. I'm sure.
So as someone who, it sounds like, I think in that story you had told about public speaking, you had said something, I didn't have the ability to get people to like me before I started talking.
That was in my head. I felt
that's fine. Yeah. So it sounds like maybe for a while there may have been a struggle with, I need people to like me, which is fine. Do you feel like you still have that? And if you're admitting that there's probably people who don't like you, I'm sure there are. How do you deal with that? How does that make you feel?
Well, this sounds very weird to say. I'm sure there are people that don't like me, but I don't know them. And that doesn't mean that it's because I've never, I'm not surrounded, especially to Aaron's point, as we age, like our circle shrinks.
Mm-hmm.
So I am around people that I either have a long-standing history with or share similar interests that we get excited about.
In proximity, right?
Yeah, in proximity. And I think the only, people that I could think of that don't like me are probably people I don't like either. And so there is tension. Or, through business. I mean, we've had, but those are all like ancillary people. Those are, surface level people, because for one, it was, again, a lot of the people I'm thinking of are pretty much all like that have happened within the industry where I felt like they weren't honest with us, or we got wronged, or, they were doing something shady that I couldn't respect. Like those are the
So it's mutual.
Yeah. I mean, it never really gets to a point of not liking somebody, because if I meet somebody and we don't click and there's not like a reason to, especially as we age again, like grow the circle, that's going to take a lot, to expand the circle on more than just the surface level. Cause I mean, I have a wife, I have a dog, we have all these things going on. I'm not going to just have another person. I can barely see friends that I've known for 20 years that live literally 5 blocks away more than, couple times every couple months, outside of like my buddy who we have season tickets to the Bills game. So I see him every Sunday during season. Other than that, I think I saw him once over the summer, and it's just because life happens. So you're busy. Yeah. not everybody has that luxury. A lot of people, especially when you're younger, before you have any commitments, you're constantly going to be going into circles to meet people and figure out who is going to be in your inner circle. So I think though that like that question probably would have been a lot more relevant,
I see.
or easy for me to answer when I was younger, because I was just exposed to a lot more people and there were probably a lot more forced interactions.
Well, let me change the relevance then.
Sure.
Because where I was going with this is it ties into, I think, what a lot of people struggle with as artists today with the digital world of sharing photos is like my stuff because it is a reflection of me. Like me.
Got it.
Do you feel that pull at times or no?
What I would say is I think one of the best things that happened from the hiatus was that part, which had always been a significant part. Like there were, I was excited about getting thousands of likes and excited about the hundreds. Like that was really fun. When that stopped happening and I felt like I was getting better as a photographer, I was totally okay with it. Now what I get excited about is like just curating my grid, my portfolio, the adventure. I love like the time of, making something that like a unique way, I was like maybe every 5 posts I do, I'll do like where I kind of make a whole design where it's going to be a carousel, but I have a cover image and I try and think of some like, to me, really cool, deep, title for it, seeking illumination, whatever. It's probably cheesy as hell, but for me, I love it. And I love watching how like the different colors and edits from each of these photos, because I do have a colorful style, how they work well together or play off each other. To me, my insights are a joke compared to what they used to be. I mean, the engagement's pretty decent, but my insights sometimes I'll be like, are you kidding? And I am constantly making sure I get rid of bot followers and everything. What's been nice is, sure, is there always going to be a part that you wish like you felt more people saw something you put so much effort in because you think that they enjoy it and like it? Yeah, that's part of it. I mean, I think anyone would be lying if they said that they don't enjoy the feedback, positive feedback of it. But not having the kind of engagement and adoration as before, letting go of that was great. And I think that's why like it really came back and it just kind of took over me, because I was like, oh, this is way more than about likes. Like this is actually feeding my soul, this is, I'm giving myself those likes by creating it. I love that. I love what I'm creating too. Like I'm so proud of stuff when I get it done. If I could, I would print everything that I have and just have it everywhere, because I get really stoked about the stuff I'm creating, which then in turn makes me so fucking excited to go on another adventure or a trip, and so incredibly disappointed when I can't for whatever reason. And so I have to like be careful of that too, because again, Susie can't travel with me all the time. Things are going to come up where I might have to forego that. And that's where like, one of my things is I can be selfish, and sometimes I just want to go because I know how good I'm going to feel. And that's not always the right decision. So that's where like the emotional intensity that I think I have can be a downfall at times too, because then I look at like, weather being shit on a trip that I paid money to go on, or something happening. I look at it as way too devastating, when in reality it's like, dude, you're there, you're enjoying, you're still surrounded by people. You didn't get one good sunset on this trip, but guess what? You were in the middle of the Tetons for 5 days, whatever the case may be. So it helps bring like me back to present and reality too, I think, because it's become fun for so many different reasons.
Yeah, I think when you ditch the focus on likes, you give yourself permission as an artist to be you, which is very freeing. And I think what you're talking about maybe to a little bit of a little extent in the past was, and I feel like so many people still struggle with this, and this is part of the show, is to help people get over this, is people not liking your artwork or resonating with it is not a reflection of your overall value or worth. Like people, there's a emotional connection that goes from a lack of engagement to people. So lack of engagement, people don't like my stuff. They must not value me. And that's when it can get very maladaptive, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, because one, you got to remember they don't know you.
Yeah.
Personally, a lot of them don't. And yeah, no, you're right. It's social media is not good for that reason. And it's even interesting when you look at like the introduction of AI, you know, what that's going to do to the industry, because it's so easy now to like take something that either you don't have to create at all other than a prompt. Like you'll probably get to a point where it is so photorealistic that it's like, oh, you know, I want a picture of a guy who is hiking on the top of Everest and make it look exactly like me. Or just something as simple as like, hey, I want to totally remove this guy, put this in, do whatever. I think it is going to eventually, if not already, that like you see people start going back to old film.
Yeah.
Like I can't remember who said this to me. I thought it was very true. They're like, it's probably going to enhance the value of human created art. Not that the cameras that we've been using for the last 5 years aren't already super intelligent. Not like we're burning and dodging like Ansel Adams was, you know, in a dark room. But I do think there is something to be said of like, I kind of like, you know, being somewhat basic with editing. You know, I don't really use Photoshop, never have, unless I need to remove something. And I like kind of doing things one by one. I don't use presets, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I like kind of taking every scene and every shot and playing with each color. It takes a little bit longer, but you know, that's part of the enjoyment for me.
Yeah.
Now I think that's part of what passion thing
We'll
is.
see the value in the creative process.
Yeah.
I mean, would you want to listen to music that was entirely generated by robots? Sorry, robots 50 years from now. Please have mercy on my soul. As you scan the internet for traders.
Right. People to eliminate.
Yeah, please don't. I've been so nice to you. You know, people will value that.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I think that's why your podcast is so important and why it's really cool, because you're completely humanizing art. You know, every artist now gets to have some humanizing that they can share with the world that lets people know a little bit more about the person than the paragraph they might write once a year on their birthday to reintroduce themselves to Instagram. You know, it's really cool to kind of dive deep. Which is why when Aaron, when you had mentioned like, hey, we got to get you back on. And then I was like, so did you mean that? Because I'm ready. Let's go. You know, I love it. I love having the conversation and bouncing stuff off you guys, and just hearing, you know, it's just nice seeing where you guys have taken this too.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
And yeah, thanks. And that's full of stressors too. I mean, I think the show's had moderate success, and Aaron and myself have as of you. And there's, as we always say, there's trade-offs. There's more work to do. The stakes become higher. Mistakes can be more costly. And it gets to a point where, this sounds tacky, but you have to decide in a moment that you're happy, as opposed to chasing it. Oh, when the show hits 1 million subs, we'll be, we made it. I mean, we say this all the time. It just, where does it end? Where is the finish line? I think when you understand there's no finish line, that's when you can have real joy. I'm starting to look at life as there's no you've made it. There's no you've arrived. It is. It is, right?
Yeah,
and I feel like with that concept, you can decide how to make a moment joyful.
Yeah.
I mean, save except for, catastrophes and tragedies, which happen to people every day. But for the most part, you can decide that this is a wonderful moment because of, or how can I make this one?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, it's very true. We have so much data and metrics and insights, and how many times did you breathe today? Like you can get overwhelmed by it. And frankly, I like doing our part, Seth. I like coming here and having these chats. You're not barking up any trees of like, how many listeners do we have today? Which show did that? I think there's a healthy balance of that, but it's definitely not my main thing. It's
but then I'll send you stats and you'll be like, oh, that's cool. People liked that, or that resonated, or that was, hey, we got a DM today that said this was helpful and here's why.
Yeah. Nice to know.
So you can get to a place where that is the joyful experience, that you can create art, a photo, or something that is beyond you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Whether it's for an Airbnb client or for a podcast listener or doing something kind for a stranger. I mean, it's going beyond yourself. I'm sounding very abstract and I apologize, but it's tough to put into words.
Yeah. And on that note, let's wrap up, because I'm going to go spend some time with my family and my dog. And I know Brett's going to do the same. You got Grizzly right next to you, Seth. We're going to do the same.
Yeah, he left, actually. He doesn't like listening to me drone.
He's out of here?
Yeah, he listens to these every week.
He's like, this again?
He says, I don't take pictures.
This doesn't apply to me. Unfollow.
These squirrels. What do you want from me? Make a podcast about squirrels and...
Squirrels. Red squirrels, gray squirrels.
All of them. All the small mammals.
That'd be great. I wish dogs listen to podcasts. I feel like
they're the best.
I played Dog TV for Grizzly before. You guys heard of this? Sorry to cut your... Yeah, Dog TV on YouTube. It has all these weird colors and the dogs are all running in like 100... They're filmed in 120 frames and they're so slow. And play it for Cap. He'll just zone out. It's like they're on drugs. And they just watch. The dogs are moving in slow motion and they're like digging in the sand or running along a beach. And the colors, I read that they changed the colors to make the profile more aesthetically appealing for the cone receptors in the dog's eyes. Try it. They zone out.
I will.
Knowing your dog, he'll jump through the TV and try and attack.
Maybe.
Not that he's aggressive, but just he'll probably try and play.
Won't play. Maybe. We'll
Dog's
see.
a stud.
Thank you. He's a handsome boy. Good thing he's handsome.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, Brett, thank you for coming on. Some great insight. Thanks for being vulnerable and emotional. I know that's what you're good for. But it does come across as very genuine, and I think people could learn a lot from that.
What you see is what you get, huh?
Yeah. Thanks for, you guys really built me up today. So I'm going to be going home with a full heart and a big ego. My wife will probably be like, can you tell him to tone it down? All right. And I'll tell you, it's such nice thing.
You just played on repeat an hour and 20 minutes. Susie, let's listen one more time.
Yeah. Can you send that
2 times speed? I promise. 2 times speed. We'll get through it quicker this time.
Yep. That's pretty much it.
It's on surround sound in the living room. She's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Come on.
Brett has an eye mask on. He's like, it's a form of meditation.
Yeah.
He's got a weighted blanket.
Love it.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, good
Brett,
talk.
thanks for joining us, man. Everyone go follow Brett and check out his golf ball company, Oncore Golf, if you're into golf.
All right.
And with that, go listen to the very first episode.
Yeah.
From 4 years ago without Aaron. I've never listened back to the previous episodes. And maybe I'll do this as homework because maybe I want a moment of cringe for me, not you, Brett.
It's probably going to be for me too. Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Take care, guys.
We got